Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Ellie.
Hello.
Morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you all?
Oh, fine, thank you. Beautiful day, so I thought I can't complain.
Beautiful day when you're inside in the air conditioning, I think.
Yeah.
That's true. It's getting hotter. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
getting sort of too hot. We were complaining about the coldness, but now
Right.
we have to complain about the heat.
Yeah.
Last week I had a winter coat and wool socks on. And
That's
didn't
true.
plant my flowers because it was going to get too cold.
That's right. That's true. Yeah. But this is the typical of the weather, right? Spring weather in Bowling Green.
I'm trying to figure this out.
No spring. It goes.
Look. There we go.
Anyone have any plans this weekend or just staying in?
Plans to work around the house finally.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, usually we're busy every weekend with some type of sporting tournament for one of the kids. So it's kind of nice to actually be able to stay home.
Yeah.
Hey,
for sure.
you're live on YouTube, so you can start whenever you'd like.
Awesome. I'll give it like one more minute to see if anyone else joins us.
You can enjoy, your days with your children, over the weekend.
Mhm.
We miss them so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
In those days, it's just, we're running around the Ohio, for the whole sports event and stuff. So we do miss them.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and get started with opening and welcome just because we have a lot to do this morning. So welcome, everyone. I hope you're having a good Friday. I was hoping that we get to introduce Melanie and Tyler, our newest members, but both of them emailed me saying they couldn't make it this morning. So I hope that they'll be able to join us at the next HRC meeting. And Emily is going to be leading the next HRC meeting because I have graduation rehearsal and I'd much rather be with HRC, but I don't think the school would allow that. So I'll be there, but it looks like Emily's joining us right now. So I'll wait 1 second so she can get the minutes started.
Ellie, just a reminder, you're going to need to approve your minutes from the last meeting. I don't see it on your agenda, so I just want to make sure you're tracking.
Yes, thank you. So we have meeting minutes from the first meeting of April to approve because we didn't have a quorum at the middle meeting in April. So do I have a motion to approve those minutes? Justin? All right.
Food.
A second.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Are you waiting on a second?
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, so I'll second.
Thank you.
Carol
All right.
Bell.
All in favor? Raise your hand. Everyone raise their hand, Emily.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Awesome. I know Matt couldn't join us this morning, so we'll move right on to the financial report from Joe.
There is no change from the previous meeting. You have, the HRC has $1,480.20 available in the 2021 budget.
Great. Thank you. And on to the mayor's report.
Good morning, everybody. I was looking forward to welcoming your new members, Melanie and Tyler. Sorry that they were unable to make it today, but certainly I'm thankful for their participation. I believe that your membership is now complete. So look forward to continuing to work with you all. That's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Thank you, Mayor Ashbacher. All right, for the chair's report, I don't have anything right now. I have a lot of stuff in new business, so when we get there, I'll talk about that. But Emily, do you have the NIAT report?
I do. Actually, I was just, my apologies for being late, but I just wanted to share with you what delayed me. And that was, I'm a big fan of NPR. And this morning they were doing a tribute to Marvin Gaye. Today is the 50th anniversary of the release of the song, What's Going On? And
Wow.
yeah. And so I stayed in the car to listen to that. I happen to be a person who was highly influenced by Marvin Gaye's music. It came out in 1971. I was still a youngster, but the words really impacted me. And I think the most important takeaway from all of what I'm sharing right now is that, honestly, we continue to ask what's going on. And it helps us be mindful of how much progress actually have we made. And I would encourage everybody to go back and, if you get a minute, listen to the lyrics of that song. The whole album actually was that particular song was about a veteran coming home from Vietnam. And, he was asking the question, what is going on? And the whole album is a tribute to social justice and social equity. And I think it's important that we keep that in mind as motivation. I think he quite honestly was a genius as a musician. That's my personal opinion. But anyway, that's my little story. I don't have a NIAT report. Aren't you guys lucky? My NIAT reports are usually very long because we're only meeting once a month, and I reported last time. So thank you.
Emily, this is Mike.
Hi, Mike.
I just want to thank you for mentioning that. I was aware of that anniversary today also. About a week or so ago, CNN had a really great documentary about that album. Specifically, it was an hour-long documentary.
Oh, cool.
And it was really interesting. You could probably find it. CNN has a streaming service or whatever, but I did watch it, and it was remarkable. I love Marvin Gaye too, and I remember that song, really well. I was pretty young also, but it was a really great documentary. It was really interesting to see, what a visionary he was. The words, back then had a certain context. Well, the context is the same today. And I just thought it was really interesting that you brought it up, because I was influenced by it too. There's a lot to learn there. We can learn from our past, and we can listen to those that came before us and paved the way for a lot of these discussions. And like you, I would recommend that if anybody has the time, look up the documentary and listen to the record. I mean, the whole album is terrific. I've got it. Vinyl, actually. I don't listen to vinyl, but still I kept it all these years. But that song in particular is just incredible. So thanks for bringing that up, and encourage everybody to follow Emily's advice and check it out, because it's terrific.
Thank you. I'm going to watch that documentary for sure. So thanks for mentioning that.
Yes, thank you both. All right, Facebook report. I don't have much. Again, if you have anything, you can send it along my way. For old business, we just have bi-monthly meetings, our social media presence, and the building of the website, and then those vision and mission statements. I know we talked about that at the last meeting, but we didn't have a quorum. I see that Anna's not with us this morning, but Steve is. Steve, did you have any updates on the vision and mission statements? I didn't know if you guys had a chance to meet or anything like that. Steve, I think you're muted.
Yeah, you're muted.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, I'm 60 years old. I'm trying to figure out technology still. No, we didn't have a meeting or get together. I think probably, as the summer goes on, we'll have a little bit more time to work on that. But we have not been in contact.
No, that's totally fine. I know both, like Anna said, she had some things come up, and I know both of you guys are busy. But that might be something too that it's good to sit on for a bit. I know that's something we talked about. We don't want to rush that process, so we can definitely come and revisit that. Thank you. And again, if you guys have any vision or mission statement ideas, they come to you. Anna and Steve have graciously taken the lead on that, so you can go ahead and email those along to them. Okay, for new business, we have quite a bit today, more than we've had a few weeks. kind of like reworking this court we had. I don't know if you guys have the agenda open right now, but I kind of rearranged those quarter ideas to a collecting and reporting committee, an events planning committee, and a current events committee. So this kind of goes along with some of the current events that we have to talk about today. So I think that'd be a good place to start. The first is the La Conexión Anti-Discrimination Bill. I know Emily knows a little bit more on that. Emily, would you want to take a minute to explain what's happening there? Emily, you're muted as well right now. That's okay.
So I actually probably Mayor Osbacher or William Harold, or they may know more than I do. I will share what I know. La Conexión has worked with council and as well as the BGPD, and they're working towards updating the anti-discrimination codes. And they made a presentation to City Council, and Mark Hollenby has advanced it as the updates for the codes. And so I think there were 4 proposals originally presented from La Conexión, and 3 were included in the update. And the 4th one that was not there was what was a way for businesses to train employees to be involved in case they experience or are witnesses to discrimination or harassment or hate crimes that occur on the premises. And so, of course, the challenge is big for city council members. They are at a place where it's what they can do is limited. So La Conexión came back and made some suggestions and encouraging them to consider that part. Not in Our Town has come out in favor of what La Conexión has suggested. So let's go back real quick to a couple things that have happened for us. We have talked for months about the possibility of setting up a way for people who have an anonymous way to report anytime they may have experienced harassment. We have learned from people. I know Anthony has shared, Anna has shared. We have people share at our Not in Our Town meetings of situations where they've been treated poorly based on discrimination. That's along with the national trend in that incidents of hate crimes and harassment and discrimination are up for all marginalized groups. So we've talked about having a safe way for people to report, and maybe it is through HRC. That was one thing that Amy presented to us several months ago, lots of months ago. So then fast forward to today, or the recent events. I had a long conversation with Sandy Rowland after the council meeting, and wondering about the possibility of HRC being a way for, to get involved with what La Conexión has done. So then I kind of putting 2 and 2 together, and I thought maybe that we need data. We need to be able to show businesses that this is happening in Bowling Green so that we can help them to understand. We happen to believe that, yes, you do have a responsibility for creating a safe and welcoming and inclusive community on your premises. I think that's a realistic request. And I also think that if we have concrete data to present to them, to show them that this is the rate of incidents that are occurring in Bowling Green, that could be a real strong influencer for them to start making those changes, or maybe agreeing to train their employees so that they would be able to intervene. And again, this is about being safe for everybody. There are research-based ways to intervene in the moment. And that's really truly what helps to reduce or eliminate acts of hate and discrimination. That's the number one way, when it happens in the moment. So putting those 2 ideas together, I hope I'm making sense there. That's what where we are right now. What can HRC do?
Can I get just a point of clarification? When you're talking about employees intervening, what is the picture for that? What do people have in mind? My own inclination with my daughter is, if something like that goes down, I told her she should run to the back, because a lot of these folks who are expressing these views are not people that I want her interacting with. They could be dangerous, and it seems to me, and that this might be putting kind of an onus on business as far as enforcement is concerned. And I'm just a little bit hesitant to think that's a good idea.
And that's a realistic reaction. Absolutely. So, but let's break it down to a second. And we don't, if there's a lot of ways, like distracting. There's 5 steps you can do. And like just changing the subject, redirecting the person who might be causing the harassment, encouraging them to, or come talk to the person who is the victim. Just let the perpetrator know that somebody is aware of their behavior. A lot of times that's all it takes, and they'll leave. If you think about bullying behavior, sometimes all it takes is for somebody to be in their face. And that all that means is just a presence sometimes. And so there's different levels, and Steve, you're right. We don't want to put anybody in a situation where they're not safe, but there are research-based methods for anybody. It's called, bystander training. And it works, and it can have a positive effect. And nobody's suggesting that we want to put somebody in an unsafe situation. And that's part of the training too, for people to recognize when is it way beyond what I can help and what I can control. And a lot of times it's not even there yet. It's about just somebody intervening, coming to talk to the person who's being harassed, so that the perpetrator knows, I'm aware of your behavior. And also, and that's enough a lot of times just to get them to go away and change their.
Can I piggyback on that just a minute, Emily?
Yes.
Steve, I get it. I have 3 daughters too, and but I think about, if they get older, do I want them intervening? And to a certain extent, yes. I mean, I want them, if they can and it's safe and they feel safe, to say something. Like, I tell them even in school now, hey, that's not okay. You don't treat them like that. But if it's a situation where they're at work and somebody's getting hostile, the best thing they can do really is call us and be a good witness. Be a presence there in a safe place. I mean, if there's like weapons and things like that are out, I don't expect them to hang around.
Sure.
But be a good witness. And that's what we tell them about it.
I appreciate that, Justin. I don't know how many of everybody I knew back then. I think Amy might be aware of it. Back about 6 years ago, my daughter and I, and my daughter's African American, we went to a local restaurant, sat down. There was one other table, and they sat us right next to the table. And as soon as we sat down, they started stage whispering some really offensive racist rhetoric. Ellie was 13, 14 at the time. And so I just said, we're leaving, and got up and left. It would have been helpful at that time had the staff there. And I want to be clear, Ellie won't go back there now because she doesn't feel it's a safe place, and she'll be a senior in high school next year. I don't want to, I've never mentioned the name of the restaurant because it's a great place. The food is good and the staff were always great to us. A lot of the problem comes from, and I hate to say it, there's probably some in town, but some of the out of towners are a little less enlightened. And this was the case that night. And when debriefing with Ellie on that, I told her that the best thing to do in a situation like that is to just leave, not escalate things, not challenge anybody. Now, had I not had a 17 or a 14-year-old with me, my reaction might have been a little bit different too. But yeah, it just, with everything going on, I think, Emily, it helps me to hear some of the strategies, because I do worry about a lot of our workers who, in a college town, are students coming up against some of these folks who are, they're well, they are who they are. So.
Yeah.
Hey, Emily, this is Mike.
Uh-huh.
Just a brief comment. I think this has been a good discussion, and I think some of the comments that have been made have pointed out kind of the paradox of the discussion and some of my personal concerns.
Mhm.
You had mentioned that in these type of situations, we don't want to put, employees necessarily at risk in terms of, intervening. That kind of comes to one of my concerns. It's my impression that some of the discussions about the modifications to the ordinance suggested would create a legal requirement for employees to to intervene in those type of situations. And that, I think, is, again, I'll say, one of my biggest concerns about this. And leads to, another consideration is that I really think a big part of this is, if we're going to have an expectation or a hope that employees are going to intervene, we need to train them. We need to train them, and that training is available. So I think a big part of the discussion could be, how do we encourage employees to take advantage of training opportunities, become more aware of options available to them in those moments. But again, to me, a big part of the discussion has to be that possibility or potential of creating a legal requirement that could hold somebody legally liable if they don't, intercede, which of course puts them potentially in a place of danger. So just wanted to mention that from my perspective.
And I put in the chat a resource for they have 5 ways to intervene based on what's the level of escalation in the moment. And it's a really, really good quality resource. I've attended the training myself. I also have 30 years of school, as an elementary school teacher, so you learn these strategies. And you use them, and so you just you train yourself to know what is the best response in the moment based on what's going on, based on the circumstances. And that's really what we're asking for people to do. And yes, there are going to be times when you cannot intervene. It's escalated to the point where it's not going to be safe for me if I intervene. But there are some really simple things you can do. And by the way, most of this is focused on, what's happening with people of color, and most recently Asian American and Pacific Islander crime, acts of hate and crime against them. But we're also thinking about, like, I work with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. They face discrimination almost daily. And so we've learned, if somebody makes an off-comment remark to them, we know how to intervene, just because we're helping to increase awareness so that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities feel safe and welcome and included in the community where they live. That's what we want for everybody. Everybody should be able to go into any place in town and feel safe and welcome.
Yes.
And then, but LGBTQ, there's a lot. Elderly, there's discrimination against the elderly. That should not happen. This is what we're talking about. And this is really what we're all working toward, a safe and welcoming and inclusive community for everybody.
Yeah, thank you for that conversation and taking the time to explain that, Emily. I think that's definitely helpful. And that kind of leads me into the new committee idea of collecting and reporting, where one committee could focus on working on a safe place for people to report these issues and gather the data. And I think we talked a few meetings back about like HRC members responding, so that committee could respond to what they can, and like what seems to be like a bigger issue could then be reported to where it needs to be reported, obviously. But they also could work on collecting that data and presenting it to council or to these groups like Not in Our Town or La Conexión, who could use this as a resource to their argument as well. So I think that's definitely something that we should work on establishing. So kind of like leading back into committees, another committee that I think would be a good idea would be the events planning committee. And that kind of just condenses the MLK, the lunch and learn, like the book club kind of thing, and then the possibility of the community movie. And I know that's a lot to throw at one committee, so I think they could work together on that. Obviously, that comes more current with when an event's coming up, like in December, they're going to have more work than they do in July, sort of deal. So the next one would be the current events. This kind of is going to come into play today too. So they would address and respond to events, like make a statement on behalf of HRC, like the 1776 project that has come to town. So I don't know if you guys are aware with that. Again, I've done a little bit of research on it, but I don't know if someone is better suited to explain what's happening with that. I can try if no one else knows, but.
I am aware of it, but I don't know a lot of details about it. So I'm sorry, I'm not able to.
No, you're good.
But the 1776 project was created by our most recent administration, prior administration, in response to the 1619, other way around. The 1776 report was created in response to the 1619 project. Do I have that right? One's a report, one's a project, and I apologize for not having it right on fresh in my mind. And they are promoting different messages and different agendas. So, so where's the truth? And I think, you know, we want people to be educated. We want people to be aware. And so I think that one idea we could do, Not in Our Town is working on this, a collective, maybe working together with Brave and HRC and the Perrysburg Coalition for Inclusion and Social Justice, to do a countywide training so that people are aware what is the 1619 project and what is the 1776 report. Lay them side by side, let people learn about them and make their own decisions.
Yeah, from what I've understood, I've talked to Tony or Anthony about this, and like from the beginning, it sounded like they were, of course, working part of this bigger organization that is trying to like reteach racism in schools, from my understanding. So like not shining like such a light on slavery, but I mean, like, yeah, it's kind of doing your own research, like not shining such a light on slavery and like reteaching racism and things like that. So I think that's definitely our place to make a statement. And I also had on there working with Brave and Not in Our Town and the Perrysburg Coalition. I think that'd be a good place for us to get involved, so we can all kind of better understand this and then address it properly.
I would just say, and I don't know enough about either project to say, but I would say that before, as a commission, we make a decision or put out a statement on something, we need to make sure that we research it, as what Emily said, to make sure that we know all the facts about both things. And really, I think it is just to put the information out there and let individuals make the decision on their own. But I would be careful about making a statement before you know everything about one project or one report or the other.
Yeah, for sure. And I can send out some of the, when I send out like the recap of this meeting, I can send out some of the resources that I had read on the subjects. We could all kind of make ourselves more familiar with that and maybe come back to it at the next meeting.
I think it'd, excuse me. I think it'd be a good idea also, not just to, we all have a tendency to look at things that are most like what we think. It might be a good idea to go on their website and see what they say about themselves too. And a lot of times you can, all movements use code words, and you can pick up on the code words and get an idea of what direction they're traveling. But I will tell you this, I've read some stuff coming out of Texas and other states right now that teaching in particular and teaching history and political science or government now is coming under just a great deal of it's just a lot is being done to undermine critical thinking in those areas in the high school and junior high curricula. And I think that's something that we should be looking at too. There are states passing laws, Texas most notably, I read about yesterday, that are just blatantly attacking the ability of teachers to teach other than what is the prescribed party line that comes out of that state's Board of Education. I'm not sure that everything I read is accurate, but if a fraction of it is, it's not a good thing. It's very jingoistic.
Ellie, this is Mike. I wanted to just kind of build on Justin's comments a little bit. First of all, I'd say that this is a good discussion to have. And I think that if the group is going to discuss it further, that education has to be a key component of that. I mean, there's a lot of information, misinformation included from various sources on this subject. So again, like Justin mentioned, educate yourselves. And I need to do a lot of work too to understand that, because it's an emerging topic of discussion here in this community. We all need to understand. And also, I would say that an important part of this, from my perspective, is going to be a balance, that it needs to be a balanced discussion, and it needs to include a level of tolerance for factual ideas or factual beliefs that might not align with yours in particular. This is again where we ask people to practice tolerance and inclusion, and that that includes your thoughts too. So we all need to challenge ourselves to be open to diverse viewpoints, diverse perspectives, in an effort to fully understand these very diverse perspectives.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it maybe was Steve that suggested reading their website and seeing where they're coming from. That's definitely something that I've just pulled up. And I think it'll help maximize those different points of view for sure.
Mhm.
All right. So kind of last is Joe and City Council. Joe emailed me about City Council's decision to start kind of zoning out of Zoom. So we're going to have in-person meetings again, I believe, by the end of June. Is that right, Joe?
The city council will no longer be meeting via Zoom, as I understand it. The state of Ohio included last year in a piece of legislation allowing for public bodies to meet remotely as we're doing today. That piece of legislation expires at the end of June. So regardless, you won't have an option as of right now after your June meeting. But what I was telling you is that council and other bodies are starting to meet in person again.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. So I guess then we're looking forward to seeing everyone in person soon. I wanted to talk about everyone's how comfortable people feel meeting in person, either inside or outside. We're lucky during the summer months we're making this transition. Does anyone have a preference? Would you be comfortable meeting in the council chamber, or would you be more comfortable meeting outside, maybe at the Worcester Green? I'm flexible for anything. So I don't know if anyone had any comments on that.
Is it starting in the June meeting, or what? The June is in the Zoom?
I believe if I'm understanding correctly, we could still have our June meeting on Zoom, but then after that, it would be
After June. Okay. So, each month is a little bit better, I'm still very concerned about, a lot of crowd and inside, in the no, I certainly like to have the social distance of the, at least 3, feet. Right now is, I think, I don't know, it might change in fall, but at least right now is I think university is trying to say there's 3 feet, with masks.
yes.
Right. So with the masks in 3 feet is sometimes very hard to get clearly, sometimes Zoom is much clearer to be able to see the, face expression too. So the later on is okay, but still I'm really, do not like to be inside without the masks.
No, for sure.
With the next to each other.
Yeah, definitely. I understand that.
So I think
go ahead.
I think a good transition is to take advantage of the fact that this is summer and get back together outside if we can and hold the meetings. And then that will give us a couple more months to then have to transition into indoors come
in fall,
October.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then also I remember that
I'm not real comfortable either.
And also I do like to ask Joe, but I remember there was no meetings in summer before.
Yep, you're correct, Akiko. Traditionally, the HRC does not meet over the summer. I believe the May meeting has been historically your last meeting until August, I believe.
Yeah, I remember that because I was always, in Japan in summer with the students, and I never missed the HRC meetings, just because of that. So this summer I'm going to be here, because we can't go, take the students there. But I remember, that's why I just remember there are no meetings in summer.
I think I found that to be particularly frustrating last summer with everything that went on around Black Lives Matter. And we had no meetings scheduled. So, we really didn't have, we didn't take any action last summer other than individually. So I'm not sure that now is the right time for us to be taking a summer hiatus.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think we did end up meeting like once or twice last summer to like discuss Black Lives Matter and that whole movement. I maybe like we could come to like a halfway point of just having once a month meetings so we don't have that middle meeting. But if something comes up again, I definitely think we shouldn't be afraid to meet if we need to. And just for the summer months, of course, we could go back in August to like our regular schedule.
So does it have to come from the city? Because I remember when we were going to meet, I remember that Joe told us you're not supposed to meet, right? Like somehow that we were told not to meet, officially. So that has to come from the city's office, when we are going to, if we're going to meet in summer. It's not something like we, HLC can decide, but it has to come from the original, or whatever we call the city, I guess.
No, Akiko, the HRC is a public body, so you can determine when you meet.
I see.
The city, as I understand it, has never directed the HRC not to meet over the summer. The HRC chose not to meet over the summer because of vacations. The 2 students on your commission may or may not be available, especially the BGSU student, who back then would have to drive to Bowling Green to meet. But that's an HRC decision.
I see.
I definitely think we should continue meeting throughout the summer when possible, just to stay on top of everything. I feel like we have a good motion starting. I don't want to lose it when we take a few months off. So
Now we have a pretty assertive agenda and projects lined up to work on, but maybe it'd be a good idea to take an informal survey of folks who know they're going to be on vacation over certain time span in the summer, and we would know maybe we want to avoid meeting dates at that particular time if it's possible, and then we would know that we could have a quorum.
yeah, that sounds smart. I could definitely just put together a form or something to see when everyone's going to be available. I think that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, it's not a good time to be traveling, so I'm going to be here, so I'll be okay.
Yeah.
If you've got a little camper and you're self-contained, you can go wherever you want.
Yeah, for that sake, is that, you know, for some of the people who are traveling, it might be, you know, good to Zoom. Then you can get in. You know, most of the hotels and most of the places have, you know, internet.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
That is the end of my new business. Announcements wise, I forgot to add this. I just thought of it right now, but Brave has their Juneteenth event coming up on June 19th, Saturday, June 19th, and I'm looking forward to being there, and I hope to see you guys there as well. It's from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Worcester Green, and there are going to be food trucks, vendors, merchants, and a whole bunch of music all day, and I think it'll be a really fun day. I'm looking forward to it. Emily?
Well, I was just following up on several months ago, Anthony asked if HRC would be willing to support them. And I don't know where it went. We haven't I don't recall that we made a decision about that, making a monetary donation, or I don't really know. If he provided more specifics, I know he did ask if we would support them.
There is a like form that you have to go through on the website to get money like requested from us. So I can email that along to them and get in touch with them and see if they would still like that. Since we definitely have it in the budget to give them a little bit of support. I think that would be great.
I'm only privy to a little bit of information, but it's quite exciting about the kind of support they have received. At the time, they were not a 501c3, so they partnered with Not in Our Town to request a grant from the Bowling Green Community Foundation, which they received. They were fully funded from the BGCF. And then in the meantime, they've also received lots of donations from BGSU colleges. And so they've got a really wonderful budget to work with. So it might be that Anthony might not need more money. I mean, isn't that a wonderful place to be in, not needing more money? But I don't know if he wanted to follow up with that request or not.
I think they would definitely take anything they can get just to make it a little bit more and a little bit more for sure. Right now at Grounds for Thought, there's actually a cookie sale benefiting Brave. So if you want a tasty way to help out Juneteenth, you can buy a cookie at Grounds for Thought and the proceeds are going to Juneteenth. So little plug there. All right, lobby visitations. Mr. Harold, do you have anything to add?
Just if you have any questions about what was discussed earlier concerning the revisions to anti-discrimination, the two principal changes, one is adding some more protected classes, including method of income, as well as ethnicity and immigration status. So those will be added. Currently, there are no definitions in the legislation for those new classes. And that's a potential source of confusion once it's implemented. The other major change is to change it from, if there's someone that wishes to register a complaint or an instance of discrimination, currently it goes to the municipal administrator. It will be changed. Next council meeting is when we're going to be voting on it probably. It'll be changed to a panel of 3 individuals. One is the municipal administrator. The other one is the president pro tem of council or designate. And the third is the chair of the HRC or designate. So assuming that, this passes, and I have no reason to believe it won't, at some point, it will default to the the third member being the chair of the HRC. But you may want to give some thought or have some discussion to determine if you want that to be the case, or have someone else on HRC. So that is one item. Another item with respect to the 1619 versus 1776, I think it would be an ideal opportunity for an totally unbiased assessment. If you get Brave and HRC and Not in Our Town to come up with some educational campaign, I think it's safe to say that the default thinking when somebody reads about it will be, oh, that will be biased. That will be their perspective. And I think we have enough of that kind of stuff going on. I think people are thirsty for having a unbiased evaluation, have somebody that's knowledgeable in both of those, and maybe some individuals that that study it, that their profession is to teach this, and have that kind of a presentation. I think that would be a breath of fresh air, because people nowadays, I'm stating the obvious people nowadays, they seek a comfort level, and their comfort is in like-minded individuals, and everybody else is the enemy. And I think that kind of climate isn't enhanced by more of the same. So I think to combat that would be to have, here's the pluses on 1619, here's the pluses on 1776, here's where they can be blended together. Now I feel bad about this, but I haven't read either of them. And I've taught American government at the college and university level. So it's an interest and a passion of mine. But every other year, I seem to have additional duties that require hundreds and hundreds of hours. So some of the really cool stuff I'd like to do gets put on the back burner. But the idea of very unbiased, I think, would be a breath of fresh air, and honestly would add to the credibility of HRC and Not in Our Town and Brave, if it can be shown, no, we're not that kind of organization. We are an organization that is in favor of education and just awareness. And I think people would flock to that if it were, advertised well. And then the third item is Marvin Gaye was incredible. I don't know if it's just people of our age, when the music of the 60s and early 70s was like, there's no decade better ever for music. But that was one of those songs. There were a number of songs back then. It was the Whole Ecology and Earth Day and the Lake Erie being dead and Cuyahoga River catching fire, and the birth of Earth Day, and also the Environmental Protection Agency. So that was an incredible song. I would put it in my top 10 of that era. But of course, there's easily a top 1,000. Anyway, so that's my comments. I have it all queued up to play it and say my final minutes of lobby visitation. Take it away, Marvin. But I figure maybe it might be better just to send the link to YouTube.
Yes.
Hey, Bill, can I interrupt real quick?
Lobby
when when we were talking about this earlier, it's funny you should mention somebody unbiased. I don't know there's anybody completely unbiased, but I do know there are people who are able to rise above their bias and give a pretty objective opinion of things. The first two people, quite frankly, that came to my mind were yourself and Mark Hollenbaugh.
Yeah.
So if I know you guys have plenty on your plate, but that's just my 2 cents worth.
I think on any topic, me and Mark would be entertaining. Mark and anybody. Mark is incredible. And I was thinking when I read the VG Independent Media article, they had a short snippet from Andy, and my thought was, and darned if it's not an odd number of years, so I have to be staying up till 1 to 3 in the morning every night to work on the campaign. But I thought it would be an incredible thing to get Andy and I to just go through, because I mean he's an expert in this stuff, and just lay it out. Because I, again, without having read them, and to my shame, I think the answer is probably somewhere in between. And that's the kind of message that I think we need in this country for so many topics, is to say, no, it's not all this, it's not all that. Let's take a look. It's probably bits and pieces we can take from both. And I think people would just are thirsty for that. But yeah, Mark and anybody would be worthwhile.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Does anyone have anything else before we adjourn?
So are we Zooming then for sure in our June meeting,
4th.
right?
I think so, yeah.
And then we'll decide where we're meeting for the next time. And then are we still doing the every 2 weeks? Because I know that kind of briefly got mentioned a little bit ago, but then we didn't really talk about it. So
yeah, that's a good question. I would say let's plan on once a month, and then for June, July, and possibly August, and we can see everyone's vacations and stuff like that. And maybe we could find like another time to meet in there as well.
Okay.
And just real quick, so when we went over the committees, I mean, are we just, do you want us to just think about which ones we're interested in, or do you want people to start doing something with a committee?
I would say definitely for now, just think about what you're interested in. And I was gonna definitely like try and encourage and push people, anyone that can come to the next meeting, or like that July meeting or June meeting, whatever. Hopefully we have enough people or everyone can come to discuss it then. If not, I don't know if it would be against, like, since it's not a public meeting, like through email, could we possibly like just everyone give their preferences and then we come to the meeting and work it out? Like if no decisions were made, would that be okay, Joe?
Yep, that's okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
then
that's
I
good.
think that'd probably be the best bet, just to get everyone's.
So shall we send each individual, preference to you?
Yeah, that would be
Ellie?
great.
So just to Ellie only, you mean? We can't do the whole. Oh,
Just send it to you.
Yeah,
just the
and then we
two.
can work through preferences and stuff like that at the next meeting.
Okay.
All right. Does anyone have anything else? All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Justin and Akiko seconds. All in favor, raise your hand. Everyone raise their hand, Emily.